In this video, I want to talk about generative cartoons and what that means for you and me as rigging artists and keyframe animators. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. While GPTs are best known for creating human-like text responses, their capabilities have expanded to generating other types of content, such as images, music, and videos. There are things about generative AI that's really exciting, but there are things about AI that's really frustrating too. If you're an artist or animator, then the rise of generative AI presents us with two major challenges. First, as a creative community, we're transitioning from working on our ideas at an atomic level to orchestrating our stories on a planetary scale. Instead of manipulating parts of a single character, we can now direct entire scenes with just an image or a few lines of text. This means that minor inputs can yield fantastic, unbelievable outputs. In order to bring our stories to life in a way that makes proper use of this technology, we'll need to rethink much of our creative workflow. Second, traditional rigging and animation may lose their place in the future of generative cartoons. If text prompts, images, and videos can create animations in any art style, then almost anyone can create things that look like cartoons that aren't traditionally animated. In order to stay involved as puppeteers and as keyframe animators, we can use a video-to-video method to realize our animation sequences. By animating a simple skeletal rig, we can provide the input for generative AI to dress it up with flesh and clothes and transform our renders into fully realized animation sequences. I'm pretty excited about that. People are using AI for all sorts of things, but I just want to make cartoons. And generative AI has proven that it can help get part of the way there. Casual creators will be delighted and amused by AI for a long time, but serious storytellers will probably become increasingly frustrated unless there's a major improvement in ways to pull everything together as a fully realized production. I'd bet that in the very near future, producers will look back at today's methods using dozens of programs and techniques to cobble together animated projects, much like how we view string puppeteers today. I believe that we're on the brink of a breakthrough that will allow complex creative projects to be directed as easily as a junior animator poses a rig. There's a lot to talk about in this video. When you see the generative AI coming out of Stable Diffusion, OpenAI, Luma Labs, Pika, Runway, and other platforms, it's clear that we're in a new era of media creation. Some of us feel excited about the innovative possibilities, while others are apprehensive due to worries about job displacement and the ethical use of AI. I believe our expectations about the future of media production depend on how well we see ourselves being a part of that future. Will we adapt and integrate these new tools into our workflows? Or will we resist and risk being left behind in this rapidly evolving landscape?
Run, Forrest, run!
The implications are both exciting and terrifying. But the more I use generative AI, the more excited I become, because we're still kind of in the tech demo phase. The results are often impressive, but we're still a ways off from being able to generate completed animated projects. And there are still a lot of questions to be answered, like how well will our investment of skill and knowledge come into play with this new way of creating movies and media? Beauty is all around us, but when it comes time for us to create something beautiful, the struggle begins. The more control we want to have, the more difficult a creative project becomes. And this is no different with generative AI. Creative control is a big challenge. Let's see what the producer at Shy Kids has to say about that.
My name is Patrick. I'm one of the directors here at Shy Kids, and I helped put together our first experiment with Sora called Airhead. What ultimately you end up seeing took work, time, and human hands to get it looking semi-consistent. Be that through the curation, the script writing, the editing, the voiceover, the music, sound design, color correction, all the typical post-production stuff.
With traditional animation, let's say you want to create a beautiful, elaborate illustration. In order to move and pose it, there are major trade-offs that have to be made. The anatomy, level of detail, color palette, and more all need to be drastically simplified. When it comes to animating a sculpture, for example, you take a form that is coherent and unified, you have to smash it up, figure out the articulation zones, rebuild it using an armature, ball joints, and sometimes strings. In order to manipulate and pose a figurine, you have to give up some things. its seamless beauty is traded off for the chance to bring it to life through the ability to pose and articulate it as you wish. I began my journey as a 2D animator by learning how to draw, and then studying how to make those characters move by creating many dozens of drawings in order to animate them. Those drawings had to relate to each other through consistent details, steady volumes, and a flowing line of action in order to make the character look like it was moving. When digital animation came along, animating became similar to posing a paper doll, which drastically reduced the amount of drawing and production time, though not all 2D animation works like this. Puppet animation introduced a different method of animating 2D characters, but it didn't kill the traditional methods of animation. New methods of art and animation tend to create both and situations, not either or ones. Right? 3D animation didn't kill stop motion or 2D animation. Motion capture hasn't replaced 3D animators, and deepfakes haven't replaced actors and actresses. And I stand in doubt that generative cartoons will kill the animation industry. An animated project weaves together various mediums, making it challenging for a solo animator or a small team to handle even a short sequence. When focusing on animating a character, tasks like background art, music, and character design can go right out the window. Generative AI, however, enables larger and more ambitious projects to be attempted by smaller teams. Let's hear from Ian Bowcroft about the era of the Creative Generalist.
We grew up in an era that said, go to school, get a degree, get really good at something, and then build expertise in that particular domain to the point where you can become promotable and have a defensible place in the workforce. AI kind of throws a wrench in that plan, because AI allows us to abstract years of discipline, expertise, and effort necessary to perform at a decent level in hundreds of different skills. And the reason that's interesting for a creative generalist perspective is that all of a sudden, a lot of those skill sets that have been dormant in my job, I can now bring to the table with the power of AI and perform them at a level that can provide value for my organization. It's no longer something that I'm told, don't do that. It's not your job. That's going to change wildly. And you can see at the edges of this, it says the adjacent possible. Well, these are adjacent possibilities based on skill sets and interests that you might have. A creative generalist isn't just somebody who has a depth of expertise in one subject. They have a depth of expertise in multiple subjects, but more importantly, they have a large cross-section of interest, hobbies, expertise, and exposure. That is what helps them make connections between the things they're an expert in and the things they're just aware of or good at. If you know what success looks like, at that point, you don't need to have the years and decades of experience to make it so. You simply need to know how to direct the tools and orchestrate the AI to help you make that happen. So a creative generalist, you can see where those edges are with the lines. You've now expanded your skill set and the productive capacity you can bring to the office and bring to your team beyond just that hexagon, which is what was expected of you in the prior era.
The animator's role as a puppeteer makes animation one of the most unique and artistic mediums. This is evident in digital animation, but it is especially highlighted in stop-motion animation and traditional string puppeteering. The cross brace is a tool that puppeteers use to manipulate a doll. This complex instrument is the connection between the puppeteer and the character. The cross brace represents the link between the artist and the life-giving art of manipulating sticks and cloth and pixels and shapes in a way that something inanimate becomes alive. As promising as generative AI is at creating video from text, images, and other videos, AI has not provided a cross brace for animators just yet, and it doesn't seem likely that we'll really have one anytime soon. So I guess we'll just have to make one of our own. To put it plainly, rigging in animation as we know it might not have much of a place in the future where there's generative cartoons. Again, I think that both will exist together, but the exciting part is that for keyframe animators, all we need to do is animate a simple skeleton rig in order to provide an in-kind input for generative cartoons, and AI will do the rest. A lot of what's called animation is not animation. If the motion is hand-keyed, then it's animation. But motion capture, video-to-video style transfers, and generative video methods are not truly animation. It might look like animation, but it's not. I'm not pointing this out because I have a problem with generative cartoons or mocap or lookalikes. I'm pointing this out because we have the ability to retain our roles as keyframe animators by using a video-to-video transfer method. Animators can animate a skeleton rig or a simple character and use generative video to clothe that figure, concentrating solely on the motion work. Then fully rendering out our characters with flesh and clothes in any style seems like a satisfying and exciting prospect for generative AI. And this is just one tool in our box as storytellers and animation producers. This is one of the possibilities that excites me the most about generative cartoons. AI was never meant to replace human creativity, but to be an ally in the creative process. So are you a student or an animator? Perhaps an animation enthusiast? You probably have your own well-formed opinion about AI. I'm not trying to change your mind. The world needs your creativity now more than ever before.